There's no B2B or B2C. It's human to human. And it was one of the things that actually I've been really proud of in creating, because it was really fun the way that it actually enabled me to talk about what I'm passionate about, which is how to humanize what it is that we do. And it was kind of exciting. I mean, one of the things that actually happened while I was giving this presentation, it got captured on I think I have a picture of it here. There we go. It got captured on a tweet. A friend of mine, Ted Rubin, actually took this picture while I was standing and giving this keynote, and I leaned over. That's me going just like this, and all of a sudden the picture went crazy across the internet. Over 80 million impressions in the next 48 hours. And it got over 15 transcribed languages and over 2,000 blogs in the next 2 weeks. It was kind of exciting, and at the same time I thought, man, what if I actually turn this into a book? So quickly, in real time, being the real-time marketers that we were, worked on this book, and it really has driven a lot of what I've been talking about for the last year and a half, if not even more, about how to humanize your business. Now, one of the things that I always talk about is what it means to humanize your business. So these are the 3 pillars that I talk about all the time. So how do you make a business as human as possible, right? You're asking me, so I'm going to tell you. So the first thing is simplicity. Why don't we do some crowd participation here? It's late in the afternoon, and I'd love to hear from you guys just as much. Who do you believe is the most simplistic brand out there? Apple. Who else? Anyone else? Sorry? Nike. Pretty straightforward. Pretty simple. Anything else? Good enough. We can go to empathy. Who is the most empathetic brand that you know? Maybe perhaps in customer service. You don't ever have any challenges with them. They're American Express. That's a good one. Southwest. Great one. Amazon. How incredible a massive organization manages to help make you feel like they are empathetic towards your needs. You can almost return anything to them and they will take it back. Now let's go to the third one, and I am hoping that we don't have a silence in the audience on this one, because it's called imperfection. Who is the most imperfect brand out there? Let's go. Facebook. Good one. Who else? The NFL? How about, who else? United Airlines. Not the first I've heard that one. Who? Kim Kardashian. She would say she's perfect. But now think about this. When you take these 3 pillars, and you've named off companies for each of them, the thing that makes them the most human is when they embrace each one. When they come back and they say, yeah, we did that. Here we're simplistic, and we have empathy, and we're imperfect. And that, when you combine all 3, I dare you to think of a company out there that combines all 3 into one. It's pretty rare. It's pretty hard to do. But when you do it, you become the most humanistic company out there. I just made up a word, humanistic. So, here's the way that I actually describe how to take then that message online through the medium, through what I call the social stadium. This is produced by my friend Bryan every year. It's the Communications Prism. He puts it out online. If you actually go Google it, it's downloadable. Every year, about 75 social media platforms come off of it, and 75 media platforms are going up on average. And that's because the social spectrum is completely fickle. They're going crazy with what is going to stick around. But the one thing that we can always count on is that this world is going to grow. And how our message resonates through the stadium, the message through the stadium is going to take off virally. And how do we do that? And I want to talk about that. But first, I want to test it. And I'm going to test it right here in the audience. So who here has been in a wave at a stadium, in a sports stadium? Raise your hands. So it's safe to assume the people who did not raise their hands were not in a wave. Is that right? So please raise your hand if you were not in a wave, because I saw lots of people not ready. Thank you. And so what I would ask of you is if you could please lead everybody in the wave. That way you get to actually say you're in one, but also it's going to help me prove a point. So you are in charge of helping this audience conduct a wave. Are you ready? Okay. You're the leader. Ready, set, go.
Send it back.
Woo! So now you can say you were not only in the wave, you led the wave. And I want you guys to think about this. Because as you're looking at what a wave represents at a stadium, the interesting part is that it always starts with one person. And then it grows into a micro community. And then a bigger community. And sometimes it takes off. Sometimes it takes a little coaching from the community to come back again. Right? And these kinds of things are all playing into the science and the art of how the crowd can take off virally through the stadium. So now I want to talk about what it takes to be the most human possible. And there's two different categories of things that you need to take note of. One is our senses. We're nothing without our senses. Now, thank God we can't smell online right now, because if we were able to smell online, that would be kind of weird. That's probably not far off. I'm sure Amazon is coming up with something. But for now, we can see, we can hear, and we can touch. And soon we'll be able to actually make things, and they're working on this at IBM, where we can make things, and on the other end of the earth, they can play with the same thing that we're crafting on our end, and we can shape and build it together. So touch is going to start to become even more incredible as we go. But now think about it, this as the audience. Everyone here learns differently. Some people are more visual, some more auditory, some like both, like YouTube gives us visual and auditory, which is why I think YouTube or video in itself is going to be taking off. If it hasn't already, it's going to blow up. But these things are the ways that we address humans in the way that we like to receive information. Now the second set that makes you human are the 6 human characteristics. Now these 6 characteristics aren't characteristics that I came up with. They're by psychologists, psychiatrists, even Tony Robbins uses them. These characteristics are the following. Connection. So if you use connection and you want to connect with other people, online is a great place to do it. Significance. Significance is a wonderful opportunity to be able to highlight somebody else in the work that they're doing. Who doesn't like to be highlighted or told that they're doing a good job? Variety or uncertainty. I love variety. I sometimes love it so much that maybe I wish I didn't, because variety is how I am driven. But I don't mind uncertainty sometimes, or consistency, right? I'd rather be on an airplane with some consistency. I don't need variety in my life on an airplane. There's some times when as humans we want one or the other. Now we also have growth. Raise your hand if you don't want to grow in life, right? Who doesn't want to grow? And finally, contribution. That's giving back. It's the give model without accepting or wanting anything in return. That's why nonprofits are around, right? Because we want to give back. So now let's talk about this in terms of where this can lead us in the human-to-human versus human-to-machine model. As I started to study how humans start to interact as they share, right? Because if you think about how you share online, how you share in person, the two are kind of similar. So think about this. We have human to human. I just talked you through all that. Now, human to human is simplicity, empathy, and imperfection. Now, take human to machine. Who here tweets or is on Facebook? Right? You are all human to machiners. Now, there's a human on the other end, so maybe I should retitle the book, Human to Machine to Human, but I think it sounds better as human to human. I'm just kidding. So, that's literal, complex, and imperfect, because we are putting data into a machine, right? We do it every day when we go to get money out of an ATM. We're putting our credit card or ATM in, and money comes out. Human to machine. And finally, machine to machine. This is going to be happening, folks. This kind of process is happening more and more. It's going to be to the point where we can't even tell if a human is responding to us on Twitter. Because we have things like Watson. You guys know about Watson, the computer that actually defeated the human in Jeopardy? So Watson can actually take in data, process it on its own, given its own question that a human drives at it. We provide it with the question, it turns the data into a response for itself, machine to machine. Now here's the difference between these three. There's only one difference. Human to human is the only one that can share contextually. Humans are the only ones that can identify a humorous situation and turn it into a share. A computer can't do that. There's no way that they can get the context of a single situation and share that out. So humans are sharing mechanisms of context, and machines are for input only. Let's look at the history of sharing, just real quickly. We've gone all the way back to cave paintings, on through marathon men, into carrier pigeons, town criers, the telegraph and newspaper, into the Mad Men era of radio, television, the personal computer, the World Wide Web, and now we have blogs, social, and mobile. What's next? What do you think is coming next? The Internet of Things, the sharing economy, the collaborative economy, whatever you want to call it, the Internet of Everything. There's all kinds of terms for it. But what it is it's the physical to digital world that's connecting. And it's happening right now. There's thousands of devices that are connected to the Internet. I think my brain is, every time I pass by this projector, I'm dying a little bit. So if I close my eyes and talk to you, please don't hold it. It's an imperfect moment. But this is really fascinating to me because I think that this is what's going to make us more human. I think that as we look at the Internet of Things, where it becomes a much more digitalized world, where the milk in our refrigerator gets called to Amazon. Amazon sees that it's running low, and it provides us that milk within the same day so that it's fresh and returned to us. There's no human interaction, right? It saves us time. That's a good use of a computered situation. So it kind of gets a little bit scary. Because I start to think about it in terms of computers and machines, humans and machines, and how they're working together. And in some instances, you start to think and get a little bit concerned because is it really humans versus machines? Where do we have a role? Where do we start to play? Well, let me share just a quick story before I answer that question. This is a scenario that actually happened to me at a keynote that I gave in Las Vegas on the way to a car show keynote that I was giving. And this can only happen in Vegas, right? Stormtrooper and Chewbacca and Darth Vader all asked me to step aside and take a picture with them. I didn't know that they were going to ask me for a tip to do this, or I would have probably said no. But they said they did this, and all of a sudden, and I get myself into these situations, just letting you know, I posted this, and it says, I'm dead serious. Literally right after I took this picture, Stormtrooper said something to Chewbacca, which didn't go over well and turned into an all-out fist brawl. And it really, they just started fighting. And Darth Vader leaned over to me in his Darth Vader voice, and that and he says, I've had it with these two. It's like they've got this little infight they've had going on. And I guess I didn't give them a good amount of tip, or the other guy didn't share it with the other guy, and they just started fighting, and this whole thing happened. And I shared this online. Now, I'm not just sharing this with you because it's funny to me. I'm sharing it with you because there's no way a computer would know that that situation was funny or that it was a moment worth sharing. There's no way that it can know the context of that situation to me and be able to share it online. So what it becomes is these little co-created shared experiences that we all have every day. And you're going to hear from Mark in a little bit, I'm sure, on content and how much content plays a role in everything we do. And that's what we're creating. We're creating micro minutes, micro areas where we can see these co-created experiences, these areas where we can share things. And we've got plenty of tools out there. We can do it on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and everything. But how we do it, and how we do it in an authentic, human way, is what we need to do. And that's how brands can also take advantage of becoming human themselves. So this is just the only, I don't share a lot of quotes, but this is the one I really like to share a lot because it speaks to everything that I really believe. This is from Dov Seidman at Harvard Business Review. The companies that succeed best will be those that focus on the humanity of work and capitalize on what humans can uniquely do. On what humans can uniquely do. That's where we have to be focusing. So when you receive an automated email in your inbox, or you receive all these different marketing messages to you, and it isn't personalized, it isn't one-to-one, it doesn't talk to you, it's the wrong message for you. It just says in brackets, name. How many of you get an email with name? Right? It's off. It will not connect, and you drop it just like that, and probably aren't interested in connecting with the brand anymore. Now, what I also think is important is that we're connecting with the many emotions that we have as humans. So think about the emotions that you have every day or in your life and how you feel towards a marketing message or a friend that puts something online around a status or content that you read. Well, this is a report that was brought out by Paul Ekman. He's an emotional expert. He did this wonderful study on the 6 emotional reasons that people and brands need to connect. The first one is fear, anger, sadness, 5 emotions, sadness, joy, and surprise. There are 6. It's just hiding the first one. Well, let's call it 5 for today. So what's really interesting about this is in his research study, he figured out that when you share an emotion, on the whole, people will be reciprocal with the same emotion back. So if you share with joy or surprise, the likelihood of them sharing back with joy or surprise is pretty high. Now, I'm not talking about the trolls out there. I'm just talking about mainly the people that you are friends with online or the people that have liked your fan page. Most of them are going to reciprocate, and that gives you the ability to guide the message in a good way, in a positive way. So when you think about that, in the Super Bowl ad, when you see something sad online, that's the emotion they're desiring, the one that they want you to have and reciprocate with. Or they had a bad media planner and they didn't think it through. I tend to think that happens more than the other, but we won't get into that. So here's another situation that happened to me. Has anybody ever been to Disneyland on the Cars ride? It's a fun ride, and at the end they do one of those snapshot pictures. At the very end of the ride, and my daughter is in the front center, and they caught it right at the right moment. And I posted this because I was like, oh my God, what are the chances? For a brief moment, the Cars ride turned my daughter into Jesus, and you can see she has a mustache and a full beard. And I swear to God, she is a beautiful girl, but for whatever reason, it caught the moment. And I thought, man, how funny is that? But then I started to think about it. There's no way that a computer could know that that was my daughter and think it was funny. There's no way it could take a picture and actually share that with everyone else. These little moments kept popping up, and I started to notice the contextual situations are happening around us all the time. Now, there's something else that I want to point out, and that's the way that we share. Because there's different people sitting here that share in different ways. We're not all the same. That's what makes us human. We all respond to things differently, and we all share things differently. Or not at all. So here's a research study that came out of the Customer Insight Group from New York Times. It was a year and a half ago, and they came out with the six personas of the online sharers. I think they match pretty well what's out there. The first one is the altruists. They're the ones that are laser focused, and they share almost the same thing every time. They have the same interests, and they share it all the time, right? Number two, the careerists. These are the people that are interested in becoming thought leaders, in helping to raise their own career, in helping to see other people raise their careers and work together so that they can all join in growth. Number three is the hipsters. Now you could argue that these might also be the millennials. That's a whole different keynote. I don't want to touch millennials today and argue with what a millennial actually is. But I kind of think that they can also fit into the hipster model. And the hipster model is when they try something new and share it. They're the first people to stand up and buy an iWatch. I'd like to think of myself as a hipster. Somebody that actually wants to try something and share it out. Number four is a boomerang. A boomerang is somebody that throws out a question and waits for a response only so they can respond. You might also think about these people as trolls. Because they can fit on both sides. Sometimes they're waiting for a response so they can pounce right back on you. I hope that most people will stick to the good side. On the fifth one, it's the connector. I like to think of myself as a connector, and you can be more than one of these. I think we tend to lean to one, but we can mix these up and we are multi-complex creatures. So a connector is somebody that actually likes to connect two or more people. I like to do this online all the time. I love to do it in person. And number six is the selectives. And the selectives are the ones that observe. Sometimes the crowd argues with me that these are the lurkers. Okay, they could be the lurkers too, but I prefer observers because they're a little bit more of an introvert. They prefer to email behind the scenes. They like to private message. And they like to share things specifically with just one person, maybe not at all. So here's a story. This encapsulates everything I just walked you through. And it does it in 60 seconds. And it's a story about two elderly women who are Dutch. And there's subtitles at the bottom, but you guys will get to see it whether you see the subtitles or not. How the range of emotions, the human characteristics, and everything else that I've talked about how they share and connect technology to share with their family how this experience is their first time in an airplane across the intercontinental adventure that they have and how they're able to communicate that to each other. So I'm going to play this for you here. Let me see if I can get help for sound.
I'm definitely not going to be able to help you with this. I'm not that guy. Just plugged in. Did you try restarting it? You try, is it plugged in?
Is it plugged in?
Just read it.
Let's see. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Intro music.
I think.
Ticking.
Thanks. So you can see how in a video, which I think, again, video is one of the most compelling uses of marketing online and what's to come, about how storytelling and video and the emotions and the different emotions that you saw throughout that and how they can come together is pretty fascinating and can be done in such a short form. I also like to talk about, just very briefly, the tools that we need, because we live in a world where there's so much, and I know I get bonus points for saying big data. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say it on the stage, but there's so much data coming in, and how are we going to find all the right moments to connect? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? We want to be able to connect with somebody on the other end so that eventually we can meet and have a real handshake. Well, there's lots of tools, lots of technology out there. That's not what I'm not going to go through it, but what I am and want to point out is that we need to remain in an open environment, in a flexible environment where we can remain human. Because a lot of things are going to change. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, all of that is going to change in the next year or go away. It's all going to change radically in the next 2 years. It almost does already. So if you think about all the technology that stands behind it, the ones that we're all buying into, if they're not as flexible alongside each of these social networks to remain open and allow us to be engaged, then they're not the right tools. And I hope I don't offend any tool people here, but that hopefully is one of the main reasons we're here, is to figure that out. So why do you think, and this is a question to you guys, why do you think we share? Why do you share? Give me a word, a reason for why you share.
Identity.
Identity.
Identify with the content and identify.
Nice. What else?
Help people.
Help people. Support them.
Extension of my personality.
Extension of who you are. I love it. Stay connected. Bam. Inspired. To inspire. Exchange of knowledge. I love that. These are all great. There's not one wrong answer, but there's one consistent thing that we all do as humans, and you actually said this. It's great. We all want to connect. Who here doesn't want to connect? It's the only reason that we are, and we should be, on social media, is to connect with other people. That's why we share. Because we don't want to just put content out there for content's sake. We want to put it out there so that we can engage with them. So there's a great formula that basically got boiled down from over 250 interviews I did for my next book that's coming out, called Shareology. And it was one of the things that almost, it became so basic, but at the same time I thought, man, this is so exciting, because we can change the perception or the value of what it is or who we are as brands or as people. So think about this. If your personal brand or your business brand, this applies to both, shares content, the content that you share is in most part equal proportion to how people perceive you. Because if you share for the next 5 days about The Economist, and that's all you share, guess what people are going to start thinking about you? They're going to start to align that brand with yours. The alignments start to form when you share different things in different ways, and they're going to start to see you that way. Now, the good news, as I just mentioned, is that you can change that perception, and that's changed simply by sharing different things. And I know this sounds so basic, but so many brands suck at it. They do. They share things that don't resonate or align with their own brand, or they talk about themselves too much and not about others. There's all kinds of things that you can read into this that will help change the perception of your brand. Now, I was really honored. In November, I was able to give, I was invited and made it through the process to give a TED Talk, and it was one of the most prideful moments I've had in my career. But what was really exciting for me was the journey that I started on this whole idea and concept of sharing. Because I'm really as you can tell, I'm really fascinated by it. And I was able to take a look at the process and the reasons for why people share. And so we did something for the very first time from any global TED stage. We allowed, and we got the TED people allowed us to bring in cell phones and tweet for the first time. They don't allow mobile phones inside. And we put up, as part of the talk, this test. We tried this out to see how it would go. And the test was, the talk was about how sharing could reimagine your future. And so we put this up on the screen. We had people take a picture of it, share with the hashtag #SharingInspires, and then they put their own idea of what they thought could inspire other people or themselves to change the world. Just a single thought. But all from this one moment in this theater. And it ended up spreading. It was really fascinating to watch, and we ended up trending internationally, which was also amazing because this was a test. We didn't know if it was going to work, and that would have been an interesting TED Talk too. But thank God that didn't happen. So then all of a sudden we started to see the trends happen more and more. Now some of these are actually pictures of my friends, but this is a real chart, and it's produced by a software program called Gelphi, Gelphi. It's a free tool that will take and import data, Twitter mainly, and you can plot the different relationships between tweets and stories that happen across the web. So you can basically see what went viral and to who. So we did that, and what we learned is that the idea of sharing inspires. Each one of these, the clusters, is a different geography. And each of the head nodes at the top of these clusters, these little blue and colored dots at the head of each of these clusters, is an influencer that has huge passion around the topic. And those people took this idea and they ran with it and spread the idea to everyone else on the whole in that geography. So what we learned out of this is that influencers have a huge amount of influence to take a concept around something they're passionate about, and we could take that and duplicate it again and again, maybe on the different levels. But we did test it. We actually took the same concept and shared it with the same top 15 people, and we were able to spread it just as fast. Now, it wasn't a TED Talk, but it was certainly proven that influence and human relationships, when we reached out to them again and said, will you please share this, made it go faster and longer than we could have done ourselves. So it's pretty cool. Now, who here had a job in high school or college that they did not like? Or in life? I can't see your hands. Right? I hated every job I had. I hated it because I couldn't have the entrepreneurial spirit that I really wanted to do the things that was going to make me a little bit more money than minimum wage. And I thought, man, how am I going to do this? How am I going to last? And so I eventually became a pizza delivery driver in college. And it was really fun until I learned that some people don't tip. And now I'm in college, so they don't have money. And I went and I talked to some of them, and I found out that they were all thirsty. I wonder why. Well, first of all, it goes well with pizza. So I went to the grocery store, and I saw this pallet of 2 liters. It was 50 cents for 2, and I bought the pallet because it was $0.25 each. And I put it in the back of my blue Blazer, and I delivered with a medium or larger, or anything larger, a free 2 liter. And I swear to God, every single time, now take note, I mean, most of them were stoned, but they would come back to me after I'd say, this is just for you, it's free. And they would come back and they'd say, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed. And they'd pull out $5 and $10 and hand it to me. I swear to God, every time I did this, there was the same response from the same people that didn't have money before. Why did they do that? Well, A, because I was listening. I heard what they needed. It was delivered in an unexpected moment, and they valued that. Now, a month and a half later, I got called into the office and told that I couldn't do this anymore because they were getting calls from the other drivers that they weren't delivering 2 liters. And I said, you need to take this on. This is a great thing for all of us. So that's a whole nother story. So everything that I've talked to you about here is really about sharing. It's all about humans, how humans interact with other humans. And there's 2 different sides to it. One is the art in what we share. And as brands, it's the science, right? What did that mean to us? How far did it go? Did it go viral? Does it mean anything in terms of the content that actually touched something, touched a nerve? Was it creative? And what are the metrics behind this? And so constantly, there's this battle between which one comes first. And I want to make sure that we're all looking at this as a very cyclical process. The story continues through art and science. There is no beginning and no end, especially when we're talking about online and social media. Final story. 3 young this is when I was giving a keynote in Singapore. I was again on my way to another keynote. This always happens. And these 2 young ladies came up to me. I posted this online. 3 young Singapore locals came up and wanted to take their picture with me. They asked me if Justin Timberlake was cool, to which I said he definitely had talent. They took more selfies with me, and one of them even had me sign her arm. Swear to God. And just as I was getting hugs goodbye, they said they were so excited to meet Joey Fatone. And for those of you who don't know, he's from NSYNC. I've actually had some people ask me who Joey Fatone was. I didn't tell her afterwards that I was not Joey Fatone because I didn't want to ruin her moment after all of that. But I really appreciate you guys. This is my last story. I appreciate you guys letting me tell you stories along the way in between what I'm here to talk about. And the reason that I say these stories is because I really want to remind you and really push forward that these are the human moments that happen, not only with us and you who's sitting here, but also within our brands. As we share things from each of our brands, it's really important that we're being as authentic as we can and we share who we are, that the things that go on inside of our companies are shared out so that people can start to understand the imperfection, empathy, and simplicity of who we are. So final thoughts. Humans share, machines input. Know your brand, share it, and develop the strong tribes that can then become your influencers to do it again and again. This is one of my favorite points. Being human is your competitive advantage. Never stop the story. It is cyclical. And finally, from the line from Meet the Parents, if you know Gaylord Fokker, I'm often told that I have Fokker moments, and I'd like to impart on all of you, embrace your Fokker moments. Those are the authentic ones. Now, I'd like to just on close invite you guys into something that I've developed. My next book, Shareology, comes out on July 14th. I've built a platform that does everything I just talked about here. It teaches the sharing methodology. I've got over 10 corporate sponsors in there. And we've got lots of content, unique content that you can't get anywhere else. And I want you guys all to be able to get in without having to buy the book. So I'm just going to give you access to it today if you would like. So all you need to do is go to share.shareologybook.com, click the link sign up, and connect with a social handle. And it's that simple. So I would love to see you guys in the community. I will be in there and we'll get to chat and talk, and there's questions. There's just under 1,000 people inside of the community already, and we're having a really good time. I'd love to have you guys all in there as well. So anyway, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for listening to me this afternoon, and I will talk to you soon. I'll be here a little bit afterwards for any questions.